Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Community Forum to talk to the Police Board about the hiring of the new Chicago Superintendent of Police. My name is Sherry Runner. I'm the interim president and CEO of the Chicago Urban League, and we'd like to welcome you to this discussion tonight. When the Police Board released the application for the new superintendent, one of the things that they said is that they wanted to get community input and they wanted to hear what the community had to say. We think it's very important that not only do they hear what the community has to say, but that the community understands the process by which this superintendent will be hired. So tonight we are going to accept comments and questions from the audience. We're going to try to be as civil and respectful as possible with each other to make sure that we get as many people open to the chance of making a comment or saying what they'd like to say. It's important. This is important as we all get engaged in what's going on in our communities around the city. And so I'm very thankful for the Police Board to come here and listen, actively listen to the community's concerns, and I hope that you all will come away with something as well. I'd like to now introduce Domiti Pongo, who is our moderator for the evening, who will give you the ground rules for what we're going to do tonight. And thank you.
Well, I know this is going to be a serious and at times passionate meeting, but you know, we can clap and enjoy each other and enjoy the fact that we have become a part of a watershed moment, because I'm used to when someone like Sherry Runner has an opportunity to leave the stage that there's at least some sort of something. And the reason why I say that is because we're experiencing something that, if I'm not mistaken, has never happened in the city of Chicago before, community input in a decision that is this important. And before we get started, I want to go ahead and introduce the president of the Chicago Police Board, and then right after that, we'll get started. Ms. Lori Lightfoot, come on and let them know about the handouts that we're giving out, and please cap her up as she comes to the stage.
Sorry, you can clap and warm your hands up because it's a little chilly here in the room. First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and the great interest that has been shown about this event on social media and otherwise leading up to this event. I think the fact that you have come out tonight and on a very, very cold night is a testament to your passion, your interest, and your concern about this very important decision that we're about to embark in, and that is the selection of the next superintendent for the City of Chicago Police Department. I also want to thank the Chicago Urban League, and particularly Sherry Runner and Paula Thornton and their incredible team for providing us with this opportunity to engage the public in an important discussion about what you think and what you feel are going to be the most important attributes of the next superintendent and the specific priorities that person should take on as they embark on this very important mission. I also want to thank WVON and our moderator, of course, Domiti Pongo, for all the hard work that they put in sponsoring this event and really publicizing it out in the community. Of course, we need to thank Kennedy King College and President Arshel Stevens and her team for all of the efforts and work that they put together in helping this event take shape. I also want to thank all the other folks who are too many to mention, who have worked very, very hard with us, our team, and the Urban League to make this night a possibility and be successful. Now, we started this process related to filling the vacancy for the police superintendent very soon after we knew that the vacancy had happened. We spent a significant amount of time doing outreach across a number of different platforms, organizations, and individuals so that we can have the finest applicant pool possible for the selection of the next superintendent. And if you've looked at our application, and that's one of the documents that we have available for you tonight, we've summarized both the attributes that we are looking for in the police superintendent, as well as the specific essay questions that all the applicants are going to have to complete as part of our process. We spent a significant time thinking as a board, thinking about all of those issues because we believe that it was really important in this crucial moment in our history to make sure that we were covering the range of issues that many of you have already articulated to us that are important for the next superintendent to address. And we want to make sure that we understand where they've been, what their track record of success is, what their skill set is, so that we can present to you and present to the mayor applicants that are more than qualified to take on this important challenge. And of course, it's really important as part of our process, and we said this from the outset, that we hear from you. Now, this is Chicago, so people haven't been shy about expressing their opinions in a number of different ways, but we felt that it was vitally important for us to reach out to you in a more organized fashion to solicit your specific input. And again, Damati will walk through the framework for tonight's discussion, but we really look forward to that opportunity. Now, before I go any further, I want to take this opportunity to introduce the members of the Chicago Police Board who are present with us tonight. And I'm going to start on my far left with Claudia Valenzuela, and if you want to just say a few words, Claudia.
Hi, good evening. My name is Claudia Valenzuela. I am a attorney with the National Immigrant Justice Center here in Chicago. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, currently live on the north side, and I view my role on the board as really trying to serve you, the community, and trying to represent as best I can the viewpoints that the very diverse communities of Chicago have.
Bill Conlon.
My name is Bill Conlon. I'm a lawyer with firm Sidley and Austin in Chicago. I grew up in Chicago, spent 5 years in the United States Attorney's Office prior to going to work at the firm I'm with now. It has been, I grew up in Chicago also. It's been my privilege to be on this board about 4.5 years. And I thank all of you for coming this evening to share your thoughts with us. What we are about, as we see it, I think, I speak for myself on this, but I think the others agree with me, the mission we are about is very important to all of us. That is you and we and the citizens of the city of Chicago to pick a superintendent who will in many ways affect all of our lives and the lives of our loved ones. So we thank you for coming, and as I say, what we are about I think is very important in the next several weeks, and your input is very important. So thank you.
Again.
My name is Guion Foreman. I'm the Executive Director of Greater Southwest Development Corporation, a nonprofit CDC located actually not far from here on 63rd Street in Chicago Lawn. We represent about 9 or 10 different communities on the south and southwest sides of the city. Very similar to Bill said, you know, we are representatives of you, and so it's very important that we get feedback from you all and that you all understand that we're hearing you and we're taking all of this into consideration as we make this important decision.
Reverend Eady.
My name is Michael Eady. I'm pastor of the People's Church of the Harvest, Church of God in Christ, in the East Garfield Park community. Been a pastor for 37 years and also serve as president of the People's Community Development Association. Very much involved in community initiatives, working with ex-offenders and youth initiatives and affordable housing. I am very excited in the sense that I view this as a golden opportunity for the community to give input into something that impacts us so greatly. And I just welcome to hear from you. I've been long involved in community and passionately love our city. I was born and raised on the west side of the city, and anything that will make Chicago better, and those of you that can give us the input on how to make that happen, that's what we're here for. We need to hear from you. You can share with us, and this is a wonderful opportunity to hear from you.
Rita.
My name is Rita Fry, and I am a lifelong resident of Chicago. I grew up on the west side. For 12 years, I was the head of the Cook County Public Defender's Office, and for 5 years, I was the court-appointed monitor for the CHA Plan for Transformation. I've had a lot of dealings on many sides with the police department and police officers, and so I'm here primarily to hear what you have to say and hear what suggestions you might have for us to have a better working relationship, not only with the police, but with the community as well.
And last but not least, Rhoda.
Good evening. I'm Rhoda Sweeney. I'm a retired judge of the Circuit Court of Cook County, and I'm also presently on the Judicial Advisory Board for the county. By way of background, I want to tell you that I've interacted with the police for many, many years. When I graduated from law school, I became a Cook County State's Attorney and was in all the different courts all over Chicago, and I became head of narcotics forfeiture. So I worked with the police on many, many narcotics cases. Then I went into private practice, and I was appointed by the federal court to defend people charged with being criminals and being in gangs. So I saw the police activity from a different side. When I became a judge, I sat in juvenile court and interacted with the police there, and I saw how juveniles interact and are treated in the neighborhoods. I have also volunteered for 18 years at the Haymarket Drug Recovery Center, where I have weekly meetings with ex-offenders, with women who are recovering drug addicts and alcoholics, who tell me about life in the city, in the neighborhoods, and how they got into the situations that they're in and their relationships with the police. So I've had so much experience that I am eager to give input to this process, and I want to hear from you, and so that we as a group can meet our goal of having community, unity, and trust.
Let me just add a little bit of background about myself. As I mentioned, I'm a lawyer by training. I have practiced for the last 10 years at a law firm downtown known as Mayer Brown LLP. My background is I was also a federal prosecutor, and for a time I served as the chief administrator of the Office of Professional Standards. I've been on the police board since August of this year and serving as its president. Let me walk through a couple other matters, and then I'm going to turn it over back to Domity. As I mentioned, we put out our application, which again you have in your packets, on approximately December 10th. We reached out to existing command staff within the police department to let them know of the opportunity. We reached out to a number of different fraternal organizations related to law enforcement and the military, a wide array of diverse organizations. We have also reached out to a national network of folks who have experience in policing, particularly in large urban centers, to make sure that the word was out that our application was on the street. We view this as a very wide open process. We have no preconceived notions about who the specific person should be, but we do have very strong feelings about the attributes and the things that the applicant should bring to the table. And I think, again, those are reflected in the applications before you. The deadline for applications is this Friday, January 15th. Once we get the applications, we'll go through a vetting process to make sure that we're looking at folks who kind of meet the minimum criteria. And then we will be meeting as a group to make decisions about folks that we're going to call in for interviews. Our hope is that we will have the candidates that we're going to recommend to the mayor selected no later than the end of February. But obviously, we're going to take our time to make sure that we do this the right way, that we are methodical in the way that we evaluate potential applicants, and that we will continue all through the process to seek and solicit comments from you, members of the public. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Domity, and I just want to thank you again for coming out on a very cold night in Chicago. I do think it really speaks well of your passion, your concerns, and your caring, not only about the city, but about this very important question, and we look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
I want to thank you all once again for coming out this evening. Again, my name is Domity Pungo. I'm the news anchor at WVON 1690. Again, thank you so much, because this has undoubtedly been the coldest it's been for this whole thing that we call a winter, this mild winter we've had. And for you all to come out this evening as Mrs. Laurie said, is a testament to how serious you find this issue to be. I'm going to talk about a few housekeeping rules, and then we'll get started. Again, all of the protesting that has happened, all of the public outcry, everything that you've been saying on social media, you've been calling your legislators, your lawmakers, you've been calling your aldermen, you've been making your voices heard. All of that has led up to this moment, and that's why it's so crucial and important that we have not only a productive discussion, but a respectful one. Of course, we're going to be passionate. Of course, there are going to be moments where there are tough questions that need to be asked, and especially with a board with individuals from several different disciplines, they're more than equipped to speak to some of those issues that you have, but we want to make sure that they have a chance to speak to them. So again, I'm going to ask that we are respectful, and that we stay to the 2-minute time frame. So we have 2 microphones, one to your left and your right, my right, your left, wherever you're sitting. Those microphones are where individuals will come up. Only 6 people total to a microphone. At this time, you can go ahead and get set. We have facilitators. The facilitator that'll be helping us out. Can you raise your hands, please? So those raising their hands, those are the facilitators. What also is going to happen, when you came in, you received several things. You received a fact sheet that Mrs. Lightfoot spoke to just a moment ago, and you also received an index card. On that card is your opportunity to write down whatever questions you may have. Because we want this to be as productive as possible and get as much of the questions that you have out there, those cards are going to be handed to me. I'll read those questions out. I ask also on that card, please put your email address so that if, in case I don't get to that question, I want to make sure that we email a response to you and keep you engaged in this conversation, okay? Also, I want to talk about what this forum is. This forum is an opportunity to talk about who the next superintendent should be in terms of the attributes that they should have and what type of person that person should be, right? This is the first time that the community has had input in this way for this discussion. So this is already a breakthrough, but it's also a baby step and a micro step in the right direction toward the progress that we aim to see, a more perfect city of Chicago in terms of accountability for the police department and openness and transparency. For some of you, this may be the first time you may have met some of these board members. If you look, you'll see an array of different backgrounds, different disciplines, everyone from lawyers, nonprofit leaders, to faith leaders. So it just speaks to an opening, and some of these have been on the board for decades or several years. It speaks to, you say, yeah, that's me. But it speaks to the diversity that the city sees as important in having a civilian board. So without further ado, I don't want to pontificate too much, but we're going to go ahead and get started. I also want to mention that aside from those standing at the podium, one of the reasons we have 6 is not only to facilitate time, but also for safety reasons. So we ask that you not block the aisles. If you're in your seat and preparing to go up next, please remain in your seat until that last person is left, and a facilitator will kind of help in guiding you toward the panel. We want to make sure that this is an orderly demonstration here. All right, without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started with the first question. Before I get started, in case I don't get an opportunity to do this, one more thing. If there are any elected officials that are in the building today or any civic leaders that are in the building today, could you please stand that we may acknowledge you? Please put your hands together for some of the elected officials that came out. The reason we found that important to do is because these are some of the elected officials that found it important to be a part of the discussion. And what this discussion is the police board panel hearing from the community. This isn't the panel talking to you. This is literally them listening and, when appropriate, answering whatever questions you may have and addressing anything that you may have that they feel they can shed light on, all right? So the first thing, and this speaks to one of the questions that are on the fact sheet that was given out. What attributes do you want to see in the superintendent? Now, when we speak to attributes, we actually took a poll, and we talked about what would be brainstorming attributes that we would think would be important. Being credible, being candid, community-oriented, and 56% of you said that you want a community-oriented superintendent, someone that's civically engaged in the community. That's something that folks are thinking about. 25% of you said credible. That's something that folks are thinking about. Now, I know, as I said earlier, this is going to be a passionate meeting, so anytime I can add some levity, I'm really excited to do so. I thought it was interesting that only 0.09% of you who took this poll, said that you want him to be candid. And I feel like because you know the city of Chicago, you'll have no problem with having a candid superintendent. All of our people in Chicago are candid and voice their minds as you have. So without further ado, I'm going to go first to this side. Again, we ask that you keep your comments at 2 minutes and what you like to say at 2 minutes. The question that you may want to speak to is, what attributes do you think would be most important for a superintendent in the city of Chicago?
Thank you very much. My name is Zakiya Muhammad, community activist, and I didn't know you were going to select the question for us because it is a very cold night, and I am very passionate about our people getting shot down and killed, unarmed people by policemen. And so my question is concerning that particular issue, and that is, I wanted to know that if there was something that this new board can do in terms of working with the U.S. Attorney General while they're here in looking into the Fraternal Order of Police's contract. That contract protects police who kill unarmed black people. And they need to open up the Fraternal Order of Police's contract and change it, because if I kill you, I'm going to jail. I'm not going back to work, get put on desk duty. So we got to change that, and we got to change it now. So what is it that this board can do in terms of working with the U.S. Attorney General, since they're here, about the Fraternal Order of Police's contract, their contract?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We're going to take all of those questions, and then at the end of the first round of question sessions, then we're going to have the board answer those collectively. Is that all right? We'll go here.
Hello, my name is J.D. Jones. I'm a Baptist minister myself, and my concern is with the, you asked the question, what attribute that we wanted to see in the next superintendent of police officers. I think that the next superintendent should be, most of all, honest and not subjugated to the mayor. You guys are sitting there on the board, and you're going to recommend a superintendent to the mayor of Chicago, but he has the final say. And that's a problem, because that guy's, I consider him as the most dishonest, crooked mayor we ever had in this city. I do feel that way. And so no matter who you pick, he's going to make a decision of who he wants, and he's most definitely, from his past, we can see he's egotistical, and he's going to have a guy there that's going to be ordered and ruled by him. We need an honest man who can stand up to the mayor and tell the truth. Now, the only guy I've seen in recent times is this guy Davis that they fired, because that guy was the only guy who would stand up and tell the truth about what they were doing. They should never have fired that guy. They should have automatically made him superintendent of the Chicago police. Because if you want honesty, you cannot have honesty with a crooked mayor. If this guy is against, if he's allowing these murders to go on and just keep coming up with new videos of black children getting killed in the street by, and I call them gangbangers. Chicago police are a bunch of gangbangers, from the judges down to the state's attorney and the cops on the street. Because if I can kill people at will, then with no consequences, what have I got to fear? So until we get that straight, we're never going to have the honesty that we need here in this city. It's wrong. It's just definitely, it's just wrong. And you that sit there, been there for years on the board, you guys knew this was happening, and you never stood up and said anything. And that's the problem.
Mr. Jones, thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that's not the first time I've heard that about Lorenzo Davis, the former IPRA investigator. So thank you for raising his name up in this discussion. We're going to go here.
Thank you. Michael Rizzo. I grew up in Chicago. My great-grandfather came here over 100 years ago, lifelong Chicago resident. I had an interesting experience down in Springfield in 2013, and it bears on the influence of the police unions in the legislature. It's something I wasn't aware of. In my education, I had coursework on police selection, assessment, psychology. I grew up in a police neighborhood. What I'm trying to say is I think I know what kind of people become police, and I know how they think. And I'd like to share some, I hope, some reforms that perhaps the board could use to try and address some of these problems we've been seeing come to light. In 2013, I was involved in the passage of the concealed carry bill. I went down to Springfield. I hadn't been down there in 25 years. I had an appointment with a man named Representative Brandon Phelps. He's a downstate legislator that was the main sponsor of the carry bill, along with the NRA lobbyist Todd Vandermeide. At the urging of the police unions, they put language in there called duty to inform. If I have a concealed carry license and an officer approaches me, if he asks me if I am armed, I must answer. That all sounds fine. The problem is it's a criminal penalty, it's arrestable. So that officer has the option of using deadly force. I have no idea if the officer is on duty, in uniform. John Gacy had a sheriff's badge. He was able to abduct people. I felt this language was extremely dangerous to citizens with this concealed carry bill. I spent thousands of dollars of my own money. I went to Springfield. I had an appointment with Representative Brandon Phelps the day before the iGold March. He canceled the appointment. When he saw me, he literally ran away down the hall, and I knew that there was a rat in the room. I knew something was wrong. I knew that the worst language was coming from the NRA and from the pro-gun people, so, you know, there was a reversal of roles there. I started talking to the black legislators, the black caucus state reps. I've met virtually every state rep on the black caucus in person or by phone. The only people who stood up to this duty to inform in the carry bill, and I'd like to give them all the credit, God bless them, LaShawn Ford from Oak Park, okay? I spoke with Emmanuel Chris Welch, who is a lawyer, has done 1983 civil suits very well, understands. He spoke out against it. In fact, he interacted with Superintendent McCarthy at the hearings for this in committee, questioned the danger of this aspect in the bill, okay? And the other representative, God bless him, is Will Davis. So we have a problem here with police accountability, and here's what I see the problem is. What I have found, and I did not understand this.
Please wrap up with this comment, please, sir.
I'm sorry,
I don't want to
thank
cut you
you.
off. Go ahead.
The police unions have a tremendous influence behind the scenes in Springfield. They are affecting these bills. When the body cam bill came out, I told all these reps, you have to have criminal penalties so they don't just delete the tape. When the bill passed, there's no criminal penalties.
Gotcha. So it goes back to having more say-so on what happens with these contracts or whatever. So
What I'm saying is you need to have a couple things that come out of Springfield. And what I would like to do is, if the board is interested in hearing what I have to say, I'm willing to meet with them at their regular meeting. But number one, you're creating a class of persons that are above the law. If they can destroy evidence and not be prosecuted, and what I'm saying is, this is not just a Chicago problem, this is a state of Illinois problem. You have a good old boy legislators down in southern Illinois that don't care about Chicago, they don't care about Cook County, they think the police are all your friends and it's Mayberry in 1962.
Thank you.
And the solution has to come.
Thank you, Mr. Rizzo. We'll go this side now.
How you doing? I too am a psychology major. I'm here on behalf of the Community Renewal Society, the Education Justice Project out of UIUC. The first attribute that I feel that the superintendent should have is he should be black. That's the first thing. Why do I say that? I say that because the largest electoral body in Chicago are people of color, black people, not just people of color, but black people. There's no real representation of that when it comes to the Klan, the FOP, because it's really just, as he just said, a good old boy network coming from my Caucasian brother. But we understand and we see what it is. We have, as I've told the alderman that's sitting right here, I told her before, we have no faith in you guys leading us anymore. We don't. So just back because you're sitting down meeting with Rahm Emanuel, we have no faith that you're going to do the right thing or give him the right representation. You're going to give him a suit. You're going to give him somebody with a master's degree, and he really has no connection to the community. I'm not from Mount Greenwood, which most of the police are. I'm not from Mount Greenwood. I don't represent Mount Greenwood. I represent Woodlawn. I represent Inglewood. I represent people that are being mowed down in the streets because it's a better chance of me getting mowed down than you, because this is what we look like. If we no matter what it is, I need a superintendent that's going to have that sentiment on his mind. I need a superintendent that's going to possibly lay down in the neighborhood where he may hear a gunshot, so he'll know how real it is out here in the field. Excuse me, in the urban jungle, as you guys Do any of you live in our neighborhoods that people getting mowed down? Are any of your kids in harm's way? Are any of your kids Rakia Boyd? Any of them? No, they're not. So don't try to act as if you're on our side. We understand. No, you don't. So this is what we need from a superintendent. You can laugh all you want, but I'm dead serious. This is what we need from a superintendent. We need you guys to get it, and whoever it is to get it, definitely not somebody appointed by Ron. That's my piece.
Thank you. Well, we'll pass it to Vice President Foreman. Did you want to respond?
All right. So I just wanted to address a couple of things. So I live in Kenwood. I grew up in Kenwood. I thought I saw G2. So I'm very active. My office is right down the street on 63rd and Rockwell. The windows of my office have been shot out in the last 5 years 8 times. Had a cousin killed in a drive-by shooting last year after he just graduated from Little Black Pearl High School. So yeah, I am in the community and I am impacted by these things. So I'm wearing a suit right now because I have to be in a suit, and I want to be respectful to you guys that I'm a representative of you. I don't want to be up here in jeans and a t-shirt because I'm representing you guys right now. So I want to be seen as being respectful to you. But absolutely, we face a lot of the same things that you face. We're members. No, we do. We have these conversations, we do, and we may have different sets of experiences, we do, but that's how we learn from each other. And this is why we have vigorous debates behind closed doors, because everybody in this room has a different set of experiences. And we have to not just represent Inglewood, not just represent Chicagoland, but we have to represent the city. And so we do. I'm not a lawyer. They'll tell you every board meeting, I say, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't understand why this technicality leads to this result. But sometimes I'm glad that we have lawyers, because I could have made a decision that could have been reversed in court.
Vice President Foreman, while you have the floor, to his first initial question, do you think it's important that the superintendent is African American?
Let me address that if I can.
Yeah, please, Ms. Lockwood.
So we have heard from a lot of folks, and I'm sure we're going to hear continue on tonight, that they want a particular person. They want a particular person that comes from a particular background. They want somebody who's black. We've heard from Latino aldermen that they want somebody who's Hispanic. Our job as the board is to pick the person who is the most qualified to lead this organization, which is large, very complex, and is obviously have a number of challenges that have been clearly identified, and we're going to hear many of those tonight. So we are open to hearing from you. We do not come into this process with any predisposed decision about the particular person or the race, but we've heard you loud and clear about what your concerns are, what your specific issues are, and we want to hear from you more tonight.
Let's do our best to not speak out of turn. You had a chance to speak. I think we understand the sentiment. Let me go to Reverend Edie. You want to respond?
Yes, I'd just like to respond and to the statement that we don't know what's going on. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago, and that's where I pastor and have been pastoring for 37 years. And I have, through programs, worked with over 4,000 ex-offenders. But you raised the point that we don't know. We're very well connected, and we do know. And the statement to the fact that we've been here doing nothing, many of us, like myself, I've been here since November of 2014, and what we're doing here even now is the sensitivity to the community. We're very sensitive to the community.
While we're in this round of discussion, do you mind if we continue with one of the questions that were asked a bit earlier? Can you clarify what the police board has the power to do in terms of the leverage that has been given to the Fraternal Order of Police and contracts? The FOP contract seems to vastly benefit the FOP more so than the city. It seems that the FOP has more leverage than it is the city council or the people of Chicago. Does the police board have any control or any way of mitigating that at all?
Let me give a little bit of background about what the police board is and what it is not. The police board by ordinance is in effect a quasi-judicial body. We hear cases that are brought on charges from the police superintendent where the superintendent is recommending a lengthy period of suspension for an officer or termination. It is the filing of the charges that triggers our jurisdiction. With respect to the collective bargaining agreement, and there are actually multiple collective bargaining agreements, the police board directly doesn't have any role in that process. However, there are two things that are going on that I think you all are aware of, but they bear repeating tonight. The first is the mayor has appointed a task force to look into a range of issues related to policing, and one of the specific issues that we're going to be looking at is whether or not there are any legal impediments to accountability for the police department. And that's going to entail looking at state statutes, city ordinances, all the collective bargaining agreements, general orders, and any other formal policies or procedures that would impede the department's ability to hold officers accountable and be responsive to the community. So that's one thing that's going on. The second thing that's going on, and I don't want to speak for the Department of Justice, but clearly the Department of Justice, as part of its mandate in looking at a pattern and practice investigation, is absolutely going to be looking at the collective bargaining agreement specifically, and if it believes that there are any issues with the collective bargaining agreements or any of the other laws, I'll call them, that I identified, they're going to be making specific recommendations around that issue as well. So I think those are two different ways, two processes now that are in place to specifically look at the collective bargaining agreements in particular.
We'll go back to the questions to the audience. Let's go this way.
Good evening. Second Congressional District candidate Charles Rayburn. And because of the length of time it took y'all to get to me, I'm going to yield to this person and ask that my 2 minutes be reserved for me. I will be right back.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Dorothy Brown. I'm the clerk of the Circuit Court of Cook County. And thank you. Thank you. And I'm here because every year I host an expungement summit that includes thousands and thousands of people. And I hear so many stories. Yes, I'm the clerk of the court, and I handle, of course, manage the records for the criminal court system. But once I went out into the community and started hosting these expungement summits and started to hear the stories of people that felt that they were railroaded and that sort of thing, I just realized that we really have to do something to fix this criminal justice system. And given the highly charged conditions that the new superintendent will inherit, that individual must first and foremost be unafraid to lead the police force of a large metropolitan area like Chicago, must not be afraid to make tough decisions, will need to be a person that's of strong convictions, someone who is willing to make decisions and not go along to get along with the status quo. That individual will also have to have experience working with racially and socially, economically diverse populations. He or she should have positive references, not only from the power structure of his or her former law enforcement job, but also from the people who were served and protected. Average citizens, crime victims, ex-offenders, young people, businessmen, women, religious, and community leaders. The new superintendent will have to come prepared with an effective plan for training police officers, a plan that will address the critical issues of subconscious racism and bias, and the overuse and excessive use of force among police officers. The plan should also include a sensible and humane strategy for dealing with the mentally ill and proven methods for enhancing police and community relations regardless of the neighborhood demographics. Serious candidates for the job of the Chicago Police Superintendent must demonstrate that they are strong and sensitive, tough and compassionate, and they fully understand the concept that equipping police officers with education and proper training is key to ensuring safer communities for all citizens.
Thank you so much.
Finally,
we want to give one more. Give me one more really quickly.
Finally, that's the finally. the disproportionality of African Americans that are incarcerated in Chicago each year, and the high crime areas that are mostly in the African American community screams out for the need for an African American police superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go this way.
Darrell Smith, president of the Inglewood Political Task Force, 46-year resident of Inglewood. My question has partially been asked already, but with the recent and current events that have taken place with the release of the McDonald's tape, the city has lost faith in our mayor. And I'm hearing that this board has been handpicked and hand-appointed by the mayor. So where is our faith in this board? And where's the community involvement in the selection of our superintendent? Because we are the ones that the superintendent has to service. I've always been taught that the police department is supposed to serve and protect, but lately I've been seeing swerving and neglecting. So we need the board to ensure us that we have a trustworthy board that's fair and partial in the selection of this superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go here.
Okay. I am Michael Harrington and represent Network 49, an organization of 49th Ward and Rogers Park neighborhood residents. All of us are here today because we are outraged by decades of Chicago police violence, corruption, and lack of professionalism by more than just a few bad apples. Our police department is an institution that is unaccountable to us, the residents who pay the bills and are the ultimate employer. You are in a position to establish new directions for law enforcement and to make the motto, serve and protect, a reality. We don't expect a Superman or Superwoman. However, that person better have the professional instincts and moral principles necessary to lead us to a new era of delivering real justice in Chicago. We recommend you ask questions in 4 key areas. Number 1, on weapons. Will they end our reliance on weapons? Adding tasers, yes, they also kill, won't end police violence. Criminals with a badge like the ones who murdered Laquan McDonald or who stood by silently and watched and lied will still do what they do. Weapons should be a last resort, and they're not even used in other countries. Ask what lessons we can learn from that. Ask if the new superintendent will devote multi-million-dollar expenditures not on weaponry and military gear, but on human development and community building. Number 2, on recruitment. An eager wannabe cop can be a red flag and a danger to us all. Ask about deep background screening of police applicants and racial views. Will they promote new mental health stress and temperament evaluations? Will they interview family, ex-lovers, and spouses for domestic violence signs which indicate that this person does not need to be weaponized? Number 3, on training. Will they improve police academy training and make it a regular requirement for all current officers? Will they train officers to de-escalate and avoid use of violence? What does community policing mean to them?
About 10 seconds,
Will
sir.
they restore funding for neighborhood foot patrols, participation in CAPS, not just by middle-class homeowners like me, but also by residents from every walk of life, especially youth? 4, and last point, on accountability and professionalism. Will they institute new accountability measures and train and monitor supervisors on enforcing professionalism? Can they spell the words immediate discipline, sanctions, firing, criminal charges for criminal conduct? Do they believe whistleblowers should be celebrated and not punished by the system? Will they actively involve citizens, their ultimate employer, in scrutinizing allegations of police misconduct at every level? I expect that you take this work seriously. We certainly do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I want to address the nature of his questions in some way. So the applications are broad in that I see the essay questions kind of ask the superintendent, the prospective superintendent, how he would address certain situations and kind of his view of what his role should be given the climate of the city. Do you have any questions on the applications or in the interview process that would specifically ask some of those tactical questions that he's asking? When how to incorporate the use of tasers. What would his approach be to training and de-escalation tactics and things of that nature? Is that something that is part of the interview process, to incorporate kind of the feel of the questions that you were asking?
Yeah, if you look at the application, which again, hopefully you all have gotten a copy of, there's a range of questions that I think address many of the issues that have been raised so far, and particularly some of the issues that were raised by Clerk Brown, both in terms of the attributes, but also the specific essay questions that we've asked. And they range from what's the track record of community engagement, what are the specific strategies for engaging the community, what about diversity in sworn personnel. We've asked specific questions about police integrity. What is the candidate going to be doing to foster a culture in which police officers elevate the importance of telling truth, not only for themselves, but for their colleagues. So I think we've addressed a number of these things, and obviously the face-to-face interviews will give us an opportunity to go into those questions in more depth. And certainly one of the things that we're going to be doing as a result of these discussions here tonight and otherwise is incorporating the themes and specific questions that have been identified as part of the questions that we're going to bring to the candidates as a part of the interview process.
Thank you. Also, a quick housekeeping thing too. I know I see some index cards being passed on. If we can get some of those over to me, I'd like some of those individuals who have written their questions down on index cards. I want to make sure I make those a part of the conversation as well. Also, if you email inputsessions@theurbanleague.org, is that the correct email address, Ms. Runner? Yes, input session at thechicagourbanleague.org. Some of those specific questions, sir, I will have you to email those, and Clerk Brown gave some awesome suggestions as well. I'll start to read some of these off the card, but I want to go here first.
Good evening. My name is Richard Wooten, and I'm here with the independent retired public safety officers, and I would like for them to stand up. We're here today because we have given the department over half of our lives. And we understand what the department is, what it's made up of, and what it's capable of doing. And we've took a stand to fight the injustice and to come out and to find a way to reform the Chicago Police Department. But also we're here today to help select the next superintendent of the Chicago Police Department. We appreciate you all coming out here today. But this is not what we've been calling for. We've been calling for the candidates to come out and speak to the community. We've been calling for the community to have an opportunity to have a seat up there so they can also vet the candidates before the mayor get a chance to make his appointments. We need to know who we're going to have working our streets. The next superintendent of this city, we don't care whether it's a male or female. We don't care whether they're civilian, sworn, or retired police officers. We don't even care whether or not they're over 63 years old, which is the age requirement that you all are giving as a limit. We have people well qualified. Terry Hiller came back out of retirement after the age of 63, and he served as interim superintendent. What we want in our superintendent is someone who have urban, now understand this here, urban policing experience. The city of Chicago is no joke. In 2016, right now, we're sitting over 110 shootings, over 17 people killed. We don't have time to train anybody to be the superintendent of the city of Chicago. They must understand the city of Chicago, from the north to the south, from Rogers Park to Deering, to Deering. They need to understand what the city is made up of. You can't police the whole city the same way. Communities deserve to be policed the way the communities are giving the resources. You can't give the same amount of police officers to the south side as you give to downtown. And we have to have someone who understands that he is going to be held accountable. He or she is going to be held accountable. We also want to make sure that they have no questionable criminal background or unfavorable and unethical decision-making practices. We also want to make sure that they represent the demographics of the city of Chicago. But most importantly, we want to make sure that they're going to enforce the court orders For example, the Prentice Marshall Orders of 1972, they gave African Americans just as equal opportunities as anybody else in the hiring and promotion effects. But also we want to make sure they focus on and promote any future court orders that is going to come out. In other words, we don't want business as usual. First and foremost, we don't see anybody on the panel that represents the community. You all may be from within the different parts of the community, but as we have come out, we've given our experience and our expertise to offer in this decision-making practices. As the retired public safety officers of the city of Chicago, we want to be a part of that vetting process that you are going to be making a decision on by the end of February.
Thank you, Mr. Wooten. Please, please, please keep your comments to 2 minutes, not because they're not excellent comments, but we want to get as much input as possible. I want to touch on something Mr. Wooten said about the community having a chance to talk to the candidates. Will the community get to see the candidates before they're confirmed by Mayor Rahm Emanuel? Is that something that the board is open to?
It's something that we're considering.
Okay, something to consider. I want to go to one of the questions on the card. How often, and it speaks to Mr. Wooten's comment, how often would superintendents have community meetings to address community issues? Now, you know, we saw toward the end of Gary McCarthy's tenure, given the public outcry, I guess it was more so about gun violence in the city. More people wanted more to be done about gun violence. Then became some of these police shootings and such. He started to have a tour where he was doing these community meetings. Is that something that you would have the superintendent do more often as a standard practice rather than a reactionary one?
Well, that's a question that we're going to put to each of the candidates that we interview. Again, we are very much interested in talking to the candidates about what their history and track record of success is in community engagements. And those of us who have been in the city of Chicago for a number of years know that there's been an array of ways in which the various superintendents have handled those issues. I think the fact that we're having this meeting here tonight, the comments that we've heard, speaks to the need for the superintendent to regularly engage himself and his command staff with members of the public. And we're going to be looking at, as part of our interview process, what the plan is for each of the candidates who we interview for engaging the community at a number of different levels on a regular basis. I think it's critically important, and that's certainly a question that we're going to put to the candidates. It's one of the specific essay questions that we've asked each candidate to address. So it is a very big priority for this board.
Let me say something, if I may. One of the things that has been mentioned, Mr. Wooten referred to this, others have talked about it. Tonight, if you look around, one of our purposes is, as we said, to hear from you, to understand what you think the attributes of the next superintendent ought to be. There are cameras all over here. The impact of this meeting is not just on us. The impact of this meeting is going to be carried by television stations. It's going to be reported in the newspapers tomorrow. And they're not going to report what we said. They're going to report what you folks said. And that's going to be read by people throughout the city and throughout city government. And I think that's part of what we've tried to do by having this meeting, and we're planning other meetings, to get that input so that what you have to say can be broadcast outside of this room. So I think it has a very beneficial effect for us to have this exchange, and I hope we will continue to do it for as long as we have tonight. But I just can't help but think that what you're saying here is going beyond this room, and I hope, and that's why I thanked you for coming, because I think it is very important.
Thank you. I think he raises a good point too, which is why I talk so often about respectful discourse as the people are talking. Try to keep side conversations and comments to a minimum, because, as he said, we do have news cameras here, we have newspapers here. These comments are being published nationwide, and but what I'm saying is, no matter what, those comments will have to keep this board honest. They'll have to keep the city honest. So if nothing else, the public knows what the community asked for, and if the superintendent doesn't represent that, we'll know that something got misplaced. Let's go to this question right here.
Go ahead with your question, sir.
Listen,
I had everything down that I was going to say, but I'm going to give it to you in straight street talk. I'm Jack Robertson Sullivan, born, bred, been in this neighborhood, 53 years in Inglewood. I think the superintendent we're going to need going to have to walk down Inglewood Street with me. I have a 127-page rap sheet. I'm an ex-criminal. This is the first time I've been in a room with Dorothy Brown when being subpoenaed. The superintendent's job is not something with just a title. You have to get out and talk to the people. I am the people. And where I come from, there are boundaries. There's already talk in the street about the senseless death of black men. The gangs that you talk about and say don't be a part of, the police is the biggest gang I know. I just can't join them. Because they kill and get away with it and it's swept under the table. I'm lucky to be standing here and be alive today. I too have bullets in my back, been shot, stepped on, crushed, abused, and amused. But I'm gonna tell you this, if you wanna be the superintendent, walk through Inglewood with me. And with that, I'll keep coming back.
Right.
Good afternoon. My name is Landon Broughton. I'm here with Kofi Power Pack, Southside Early Learning Network, and several other agencies in the Inglewood and throughout the city of Chicago. First off, I want to say restorative justice, getting the police out of schools, and stopping the preschool to prison pipeline. Those are some of the attributes that I would like to see the police superintendent have, as we come. And personally, I would prefer to see Jadine Child with the CPS safety director come and take that position, because the job that she did with CPS schools is a wonderful job. That's a community-driven person. She's just a good person, a good candidate for me. And to Mr. Foreman, you say you want to sit there, you came to respect us by putting on a suit. Personally, I would prefer to see you up here with the t-shirt and blue jeans on, because you represent yourself and you keeping it real with everybody else, instead of putting on a farce about, sitting on the board trying to respect us. The other thing is, as far as with this, the timing of this hearing, it was just, I was found out, Friday. And if it wasn't for Alderman Moore putting it up on the Facebook page, I would have never found out about it. And then it was a change from one venue to the other. That just came about. So why was it a delay in having these public hearings and notifying? How come we couldn't have prior notice to where we can have this room packed with not one seat in it? So that's my question to the board.
Is that suggested?
My name is Doris Lewis. I'm a community activist, retired teacher, counselor. I keep coming to these meetings and I'm beginning to question myself as to why do I continue to come. Over 70-some years ago, historian W.B. Du Bois said, "The problem of America is the color line." I will take it farther than that. For over 450 years, the problem of America is the color line. The problem of America is racism and white supremacy. We don't want to talk about racism and white supremacy. So I say the next superintendent, I would like for that person to be black, but that black person is going to have to understand this system of racism and white supremacy. We're being shot down like dogs. Oh, you don't even shoot dogs down anymore. We're being shot down because of this melanin that's in our skin. It's because we're black. You all have been on this police board. How many young black men have we shot? What have you really done? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if we as black people do not understand this system of racism and white supremacy, what it is, how it works, everything is going to be confusing to us, and it's going to be a waste of time. White people are a part of this system of racism and white supremacy. If you're not trying to change it, you are a part of it. We had policemen during slavery time when our people were enslaved. Their primary responsibility was to protect the property of those slave owners. So nothing has changed. We're in the 1800s. Black man has no right that a white man is bound to respect. The attorney up there should know what I'm talking about. Dred Scott. Dred Scott. So this is where we are. Might as well not have any black people on that board. What have you done? What have you done? And as I said, I keep coming because I keep thinking about, I'm going to finish. I keep coming because I keep thinking about the children. I'm a former teacher. I'm a former counselor. So I'm thinking about our little black boys and our little black girls. Not only are you shooting down our young people, you're shooting down our babies, you're shooting down women, old, young, it does not matter. The problem we have is black people. God gave us all this melanin. And that's why we're being shot. So the first question you should have on that doggone list is, do you understand racism and white supremacy, what it is, how it works?
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Keith Harris. I'm a member of the Inglewood Political Task Force and president of the 16th Ward Political Task Force. I had a question written down, but while I've been standing here and listening to some of the other speakers, I was looking at the monitor up there, and it said, who will be Chicago's next CPD superintendent? Share your voice. And I looked at the date, January 12th. On your handout, it says the applications have to be in by January 15th. So, common sense kind of tells me that you taking information from us and they got to get to candidates within 3 days when they've had the application since December the 10th. So how can we really trust that what the feedback you get from us is going to get to these candidates? Secondly, I don't know whether it's an ordinance or a law or whatever the case may be, where this deadline of February has to be in, but my suggestion is that if this board, and y'all can tell the mayor too, if y'all serious about mending some bridges with the community, you make public who those candidates are, and you put together a mechanism where the community can give some real input on who those candidates are, having the same information that you guys have, and extend the deadline. Other than that, this ain't even show and tell, this show and trick. And you're gonna continue to have problems, because this is a real mild crowd, but you're gonna continue to have problems, and you got young brothers like the one behind me, and I'm sure you're gonna hear from him, that's ready and willing to go out here and stand up for our community. I'm not gonna beat up on you. Knowing what y'all are part of and having to look in the mirror is enough beating. But we really need y'all to go back and redo this process and then come back out here and talk to us and tell us you want our input, and then we'll know that y'all genuine about having our input.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Do we want to speak at all to the timing of the event?
I'll address the last gentleman's comments. Who's that guy? You have a lot to say, don't you, sir? Why don't you stand up in line and you can give us your comments directly? How about that? Okay. Yeah. So I think there may be a little bit of confusion about what the process is. The applications were out in December. The deadline for people who want to apply is this Friday. Our process continues, obviously, after the applications are in. We are coming out to you tonight. We are coming out to you next week, and we invite you to engage with us, and we'll give you some specific information about other ways that you can make your views heard outside of these formal public hearings. But the process for the selection continues. It doesn't end on Friday. Friday is a milestone, and an important milestone for the applicants to put their applications in, but the process of vetting and evaluating them and incorporating your thoughts, your concerns continues, which is why we're here tonight, and it makes tonight's conversation very timely.
Thank you.
Lauren Taylor. I'm just a person from the neighborhood. Unfortunately, it seems like this process seems to be, if I get the reaction of the crowd here, it seems to be raising even more questions than it's settling. I think people are going to come out of here probably even more unsettled than they came in. Okay. Very quickly, most of what needs to be done really you can't do. Going to what this brother was saying, brother from Inglewood, it's obvious. Resignation, Rahm Emanuel. Resignation, Anita Alvarez. Not just that. Indictments, Rahm Emanuel, Anita Alvarez. You all can't do that. Much respect. You all should be elected by the people. Respect for what it is that you do, but you really should be elected. Number 3, Fraternal Order of Police is a fraternal order. It's like the Masons, okay? The history of the Fraternal Order of Police shows that they were arbitrarily selected to be the representatives for the Chicago Police. The history does not substantiate them being the voice for the Chicago Police. And we see how dysfunctional that was when Laquan McDonald got shot. And the first public statement was with somebody from the Fraternal Order of Police. They got to go. They got to go. Fraternal Order, okay. Wrap it up. Lorenzo Davis for Chicago Police Superintendent. And very quickly to the black family, not just to the black family, but to Chicago. The world is watching us right now. We have some of the most brilliant minds on the planet here. We can do this. We don't have to worry about what will happen if Rahm goes or who the superintendent can be. We shine like gold, Chicago, and we need to realize that and get it together and solve it. We can do this. And if we can't do it here, the world will be a path to our door to help us.
Thank you. Thank you.
My name is Andy Thayer, and I'm co-founder of the Gay Liberation Network. And over the decades, we've had our own problems in the LGBT community, people of all races being attacked by the police and nothing being done by Chicago's political establishment. Now, I've been going to police board meetings for over 20 years off and on, going back to when they were held at 11th and State. I've seen a lot of police superintendents. I've seen a lot of different board members. And so excuse me if I'm not very impressed with yet another promise of reform and a new and improved police superintendent. Now, I remember how John Burge was fired. He was let go 1 week after the riots of Rodney King out in L.A. That's the only reason why we got rid of that bastard, okay? And all the police officers around him, the probably hundreds and thousands who heard the screams coming from the torture chambers, they all stayed on the job. Many of them were promoted. In fact, Police Superintendent Matt Rodriguez said about so-called repeater beaters, they get promoted because they show, quote unquote, a lot of enthusiasm for the job. Now we have got the Laquan McDonald video. Okay? And the shocking thing about that is all the so-called good officers who stood by and watched and let it happen. Until the police officers, unlike those around John Burge, the so-called good police officers are fired and criminally prosecuted by the next state's attorney in the next few months. Until that happens, then you're not going to have a cutting of the blue coat of silence because no one is going to come forward because they know that all that cover for those psychotic cops, the so-called good cops, they're going to get promoted rather than be fired and criminally prosecuted. So frankly, I don't have any faith in this board. I've seen you guys for years. Before there was IPRA, there was the Office of Professional Standards. You remember that, Ms. Lightfoot. It was affectionately known as OOPS, and for a very good reason.
Thank you for your comments. I'm going to run to the cards really quickly because some of these questions speak to some of the things you talked about. It says, why can't we hire local raised Chicago superintendent who born and raised, for the most part, in Chicago? Do you have any comments to that regard?
We will see when we see.
And it's a national search, so it could be someone from another community as well.
By ordinance, there's no residence requirement for the superintendent. We expect that we're going to have existing members of the Chicago Police Department apply. We expect that we're going to have former members of the Chicago Police Department apply, and we also expect that we're going to have folks who law enforcement experiences outside of Chicago also apply.
To the next question, it says how many applicants have applied and how many are existing CPD officers or members or employees of the CPD?
Well, we've had a number of people apply, and we'll have a better sense of that when we see the close of the application deadline on Friday.
Okay, good evening, everybody. My name is Pat Hill. I'm not running for superintendent, okay? Everybody relax. I'm familiar with the board, and I want to say especially kudos to Mr. Foreman and Ms. Fry. The rest of you, I don't know. And I'm very familiar with the board since the police department tried to fire me 3 times, and I've been before the board several times. But what I think is important so that we can have some type of progress come out of this is, number one, why was the board even organized or formed in the first place? And one of the first members of the board came out of a church in this community, Reverend Daniels. And by state statute, there's certain things that they were to do originally, and it seems like some of those responsibilities have evolved. Now, I think, having gone to police board meetings for over 25 years, I think we have to do something new, because the definition of insanity is, and the last 2 superintendents are proof through the process of the board putting out the search, the board giving the 3 recommendations to the mayor, many organizations testifying at the police committee to not even confirm McCarthy and Weiss, and they do it anyway, that we have what we have. Now, the problem really is, and I think we're misunderstanding community representation. Everybody here comes from a community. We understand that. But you report directly to the mayor. There has to be a stopgap between you and the mayor. And so what retired Officer Wooten was trying to explain, and I'm only saying this because you need to recommend this to the mayor, okay, since you are the spokespeople to the mayor for why he's there. Because if we have our druthers, he ain't going to be there too much longer. So what I am saying is that, and I'm saying this to the community as well, authority is something that has to be given. So a group of retired police officers and fire persons and sheriffs and state police have come together, and they're asking the community to give us the authority to be that stopgap. We will report to whomever, which is you. You have to choose the superintendent. The police department is a public entity. It should always come under public scrutiny. And it's not like, no offense to anybody, we don't have to go through Jesus to get to God. So the people, if whatever you can do, since your definition evolves as a body, whatever you can do, be imaginative. You got some new people, and for the record, people, none of these people have been here, I don't think, over 5 years.
Please end your comments here when you can.
And I'm gonna end it. I don't know you, young man, but it's okay. All right.
I respect you immensely too.
I want to say this because I want to take a minute. I know you are going to go to other sides of Chicago, other sides of the town. Okay, but would somebody on this board explain clearly how what we say here today translates into who or how you decide the next superintendent is going to be? Because it doesn't really. We didn't make the criteria up. We didn't create the questions. We're not going to sit face to face. So pretty soon, we're going to be a little bit more aggressive in becoming that stopgap. And we hope that that would be a relationship that's amicable, thank you. And that we will make that decision will ultimately come from the community and not from the board, because you haven't gotten it right.
Thank you. Thank you. They would like a response from the board to the specific question of how can there be a community, how can the community be involved in a way that keeps the board accountable and make them more substantially a part of the decision-making process?
Well, We're doing that. We're doing that now. Why we are here tonight is it, sir? Why we're doing that tonight is to take specific feedback from the community before the board engages in its process to interview candidates and vet them from background checks and so forth. So the very fact that we're having this discussion, the comments that are coming from you are going to be integrated into the process that we use to interview candidates and make our ultimate recommendations on who the choices should be that go to the mayor. So it's very much important part of our process to integrate your thoughts, your concerns, and your questions. The Urban League, I don't want to steal the thunder of the Urban League, but one of the things that the Urban League is going to be doing is compiling a list of comments from the social media platforms and otherwise to provide to the board to give us even additional insights. So with all due respect, Ms. Hill, that is part of our process, engaging the community, using the feedback that we're getting from you tonight and in other forums. That is going to be part of what we use to conduct our search going forward from today. So it's an important part of the process.
Reverend Edie, you want to respond?
Hello. I'd just like to say as well that we respectfully are here to hear you. And the fact that many of the things that you are raising have been a part of our discussion, but we did not come to tell you what we wanted to do. We're here to hear from you, and it's being presumed that many of the things you're saying has never been a part of our discussion. But much of what you have said has been a part of our discussion. But but we have come to hear you. We didn't come to dictate to you. We came to hear you. And so it is best to understand than to be understood. And that's our process here. We are here to understand, and then you will clearly be able to understand us.
Yes, how you doing? I don't belong to any organizations. I'm just a concerned father, okay? I got two sons that's in their 20s, okay? Perfect age for them to get shot, okay? I don't know what's going on as far as how the police are getting trained, okay? And I really don't know much about choosing a superintendent either, okay? I have to know a lot more about them before you can get my vote, okay? But as far as the police department and their training, something has to be done within their training, you know. Instead of teaching them to shoot to kill, you know, maybe shoot to maim, you know. It's, you know, because it's too much that we thought they had a gun, so we killed them. You see what I'm saying? You know, it's been too much of that, you know? And I'm tired of hearing it on TV. Even back when I was a kid, okay, everybody knew police had throwaways. They kept them on their ankles, you know? Everybody knew it, okay? Just in case if they shot somebody unlawfully, you know, they get that gun out them, throw it by the body. Oh, they had a gun, you know? It was rarely known. Everybody knew it, you know?
A few more seconds.
Training.
You have about 5 seconds.
And, you know, this one law that gets me, you know, that kills me, is guilt by association. You know, we got good kids in some of these worst neighborhoods, okay? These kids are growing up with some of the better kids. just like you got good police mixed in with the bad ones. And we seeing too many of our good kids getting arrested or getting killed because they in a community with a little worse kids.
I gotta stop you right there. Let's go to this. Thank you.
So,
Thank you for your comments, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Great comments as well.
Good evening. My name is Evangel Mamadi Love Yanubian. I'm founding president of Global Committee Commemorating King Days, chartered in 1984, and Yah Nation of Obedience Spiritual Ministry. I grew up in Inglewood when Inglewood was everything. I'm wondering if the new superintendent will be able to challenge the constitutionality of treating some illnesses as a crime and others as not a crime, and what they'll be able to do in dealing with police officers suffering from negrophobia, that is the fear and hatred of black people that make them appear like a Hulk and like demons. What will they do to deal with the mental health that the police have, especially since the general population are batterers of 20% and police officers are batterers of 40%. So what will they do to deal with that? In the past, they used to have men come with white coats, and they carried straight jackets, and they took patients to the hospital. And now, today, you got men coming in blue coats with guns and tasers, and they take patients to jail and call them suspects. So, I want to know what will be done to change that. In a similar, discrimination exists in a similar situated situation.
Thank you.
People are different.
I'm so sorry. I'm going to be a little bit stricter on the time at this point because we have several people that I definitely want to hear from, and we're running really short on time. So please keep it at 2. But we hear you. How do we address mental illness, and how can we sit and look at who has negrophobia? I heard you. No. I'm not upset by anything, man. I hear you. Thank you. Let's go here. Thank you.
Good evening, Charles Rayburn, 2nd Congressional District candidate. Don't go nowhere, sister. Listen, I want to yield 1 minute of my time. If you got something else to say, go right ahead and say it. Go ahead. You got 1 minute of my time.
I'm sorry. We're nearing the end. We have to move forward, sir.
Wait, sir.
I mean, we have
I got 2
individuals.
minutes. She can have 2 minutes. She can have 1 minute of my time, sir. Go right ahead.
Hey, wait, how many times was he shot? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Now, the United Nations are going to be coming to Chicago January 24th and January 25th. It is your opportunity to talk about the Jim Crow genocide that is going on. And as a Jim Crow genocide survivor, we need to ask for United Nations protection. They'll be at Chicago State on January 24th and 25th.
Thank you.
Listen, I came here with an open mind. You know, I had respect and optimism, but when I left out of this auditorium, I had calls from my constituents in the 2nd Congressional District. Mr. Rayburn, I can't even get in here. I'm looking around, and cameras, don't point at me. Look at the seats. I counted over 50 empty seats, so I had to go out here and see what the heck is going on. And your people out there are telling them, it's full. You can't even come in here. Now, what the heck is that all about? Okay? So listen, you talking about integrity. Listen, Chuck, that's me, says honesty and integrity have become like prayers in our public schools. Those of us that practice it are first disciplined, and then we're quickly removed. Listen, it doesn't make a difference who you select for the superintendent. We're fed up. We're not going to stand for it anymore. We will get the superintendent that we want. We will march in the streets. We will do everything that we have to take, starting with, once again, Mayor Rahm Emanuel's got to go.
Thank
Not only Mayor Rahm.
Thank you, sir. We're going to go here. We're going to go here.
Good evening. My name is Naima Latif. I am the managing editor of the Windy City Word newspaper. And I see a point on here on attributes. It says extensive experience in devising and implementing plans to address terrorism threats. Well, given the number of officers that have been waged with excessive complaints by citizens of excessive force and police misconduct, and as was said earlier, many who participated in the torture and got promoted, and the level of people who are being shot down, this is terrorism. So my question is, the new police superintendent, in reviewing so many of these officers, needs to be able to make a decision to fire many of them immediately. Will that superintendent have the power, looking at these records and looking at the complaints and looking at the unanswered shootings, will that superintendent have the power to make that decision, and will this board be supportive of that decision?
Thank you, Naima. Thank you. I'm going to go to the cards really quickly right before we go to this side. Oh, go ahead. Would you like to respond to that question?
The superintendent has that power now. And the board, if there are charges that are brought by the superintendent for officers that the superintendent believes should be terminated, we decide those cases every single month. The superintendent has that power now. The superintendent exercises that power now.
So the superintendent does have the power to fire officers, because this next question says, I'm not so much interested in who the next police chief is. It seems that the chief is just a manager and that he doesn't have the authority to fire bogus officers. Therefore, any question as to what can be done to keep the FOP from being more powerful than the chief himself and the mayor. And I think, I share that sentiment that I always was under the impression that the superintendent didn't have the ability to fire officers. He could only put them on desk duty until something else happened. Is that untrue?
What I said is that the superintendent has the ability, if he believes that an officer is not fit for the job for a host of reasons, to recommend that officer's termination and file charges before the police board, and then that's when our jurisdiction comes into play.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for clarifying. Thank you so much. All right. And then we're going to go this.
Before y'all cut my mic off, my name is J. Maul Green. All right, now. This meeting has made me sick to my stomach. And I'm going to tell you the truth. Because all I'm looking at are the mayor's puppets. Okay? And you talking about picking a new superintendent. Whoever's the superintendent is going to be the mayor's puppet. Okay? Gary McCarthy was fired. Gary McCarthy did not want to resign, but he was fired. Okay? Anybody could have been in that position at that time. And guess what would have happened? They would have had to cover it up for the mayor. Or if he doesn't, he would have got fired. And once he covered it up and lost the trust of the people, he was still going to get fired. So at the end of the day, what needs to happen is it needs to be in the community's hands. You don't need to pick them, or the mayor does not need to pick them. We need to pick who the superintendent is. And that is what's important. Now, we also need to go ahead and get this mayor out. And if I was a black person that was on this board, I would have stepped down from this position after seeing how the mayor's office have covered this up. And I'm going to say this just like this, since we have Vance Henry. I think he just got up and walked out when I got done start talking. Yeah, but listen, at the end of the day, the community needs to pick who the superintendent is, or it's just going to go back to business as usual. And all of this is just a show. It's just a show. And that's just the main thing. So you guys should maybe make a recommendation to have a special election or some way that the community can be involved in picking this person. Not you or not the mayor.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pastor Kevin Jones. I'm a lifelong Inglewood resident. Grew up right on 59th and Halstead. You said some attributes about the next superintendent. I think a fair attribute would be fortitude, which means, courage in the face of pain and adversity. So that person that's going to be our next superintendent needs to see the pain that we're going through, because first of all, they don't respect us as people. And secondly, when we're going through adversity, that person needs to understand that there can be no more white privilege or blue privilege. Forget a blue code of silence. It's blue privilege that goes on that keeps these individuals in jobs after they've murdered somebody, abused somebody, taken away families, torn down families, tearing up communities, and we're the first ones to get blamed. So what we got to do is, like J. Maul said, and everybody that came in here, and forgive us if we seem offended and mad and upset, because we are. So what we need to do is have us as individuals in our communities. If you want to take it back, we have to make the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You got to make noise about what you want to see done. You have to stop them from making decisions for us, because they're not going to make them in our favor. So we have to make decisions for us. Stop white privilege, stop blue privilege, and let us have black privilege to show what we want done in our communities, because we're living here. They get to kill us, go get a burger, go home to their families while ours are tore down, and our communities are stripped of our integrity, our livelihood, our pride, our everything. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. I want to let folks know, too, and our facilitators will do this, too. These are the last 5 questions right here. We're about to wrap up pretty soon. Go ahead.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Darius Ballinger. I'm a student at Kennedy King College. I currently serve as a president of student government. I'm also a citizen of the 3rd Ward. In terms of getting information with the follow-up of the process with this, is that something that we can get on the way out? Should we have signed up for something of that? That was so because at first you had mentioned that we would still be able to follow up after this discussion. Where would that information be? Because I didn't sign up for it. I signed up with the Urban League, but I didn't know.
On those index cards, could you have him sign his email down on that? Okay. And if you have not signed up, please sign your email. Also, if you aren't able to sign up before you get a chance to leave out, the email is inputsession@thechicagourbanleague.org. Please, everyone, if you don't have a chance to sign in or give someone your index card, the email is inputsession@thechicagoleague.org. Do you have an email address that you want to give out on behalf of the police board?
Yeah, you can also go to our website and provide us with information. It's chicagopoliceboard.org, and we're taking information that way as well. Okay. Yeah, or you can call the office, and the number's on the website.
So my first question is to the board, because I want to have an honest, open discussion, and preferably from Ms. Claudia, Mr. William, Ms. Rito, or even Ms. Rhonda, if I'm pronouncing it right. Outside of this board, what's your public service? Like, what do you do in this community outside of just sitting on this board? Does anyone want to answer? Yes, okay.
Yeah, in the Justice. About 20 seconds. Okay, yeah, I'm on the Justice Advisory Council with President Preckwinkle, and we've overhauled the communications area where the public defender can talk to defendants. We've provided desks for them so the public defenders don't have to interview the defendants in the jail cell. And as we speak, I'm going to be spending a lot of time in bond court so that we can improve the conditions in bond court so people feel respected and they can talk with their family, and the judge has the opportunity to interview every defendant and see the totality of the situation rather than just saying what the bond is. So that's what I'm working on.
Really quick, Darius, I'm going to take a pause right here, because since we're winding down on time, the last thing I want to say is that I don't get a chance to hear from you all, and that the board doesn't get a chance to hear from you all. And I want those voices to be heard. But on the website is each person's resume. Okay. And you can parse that information, and even afterward, I can show you some of those resources personally. Okay. And again, that email address is inputsession@thechicagourbanleague.org. I don't mean to pause your question, but I want to make sure we get to everyone. All right?
No, that's understandable.
So
then my next question is,
we have to go here with it,
because you did say 2 minutes, so I just respectfully want my 2 minutes.
We're beyond 2 minutes.
Honestly, because I waited 9 minutes. You know what I'm saying? I said and waited. So
just, give me a last piece.
2 minutes. Just
give me a last piece.
Just two. Come on. So my next question is, Ms. Rhonda, and this is in all honesty, how did you feel when the Laquan McDonald video came out? Honestly. Honestly. Or even Ronald Johnson. Like, how did you, when you saw that, how did you feel? How did you?
I hear what you're getting at. The only reason The only
She can't
reason.
answer. Can she answer that?
No, she can answer the question. What I'm
So
saying
let
is,
her answer, because you just cut my time off. Let me get my 2 minutes. Answer respectfully. Let her answer. Let her answer.
the reason
You
I'm
have the floor. You have the floor. You have the floor. You have the floor, Miss Sweetney. Answer. You
The
have
reason- the
floor.
reason why-
she has the floor. She has the floor. This is a discussion. She
Well, go ahead,
has
go ahead.
the floor.
The case is going to come before the board. We're going to examine all the facts and circumstances. The officer is going to have an opportunity. Well,
well, the reason.
okay.
Let's move forward, though. We want to go next to the rest of the panel. I understand your sentiment. Your sentiment has been received. We want to go to the next person. We're going to go to the next person. Listen.
Should I just say I feel bad for the family?
You say what you want to say.
Listen. Okay, there we go. Okay, so, all right, we got you. We got you, dear. We got you, brother. Appreciate you. We got you. We're going to go right here.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is T.C. McCoy, and I was, excuse me, I just want, I know, listen. Let me say my piece, and then we all go. But just let me say this.
Let me say this really quickly.
Okay, hold on.
J-Ma, let me say this really quickly.
Hold on.
His words are important, so we want to hear his words. Let's go
let
ahead.
me just say this.
And this is an elder.
Please let me say this.
And this is an elder. Let's
Okay,
go.
watch this. My name is T.C. McCoy, and I was up there listening to the people talking to the panel. I'm an ex-Chicago police officer for 28 and a half years. I live on the west side of Chicago. I cross Pulaski and Roosevelt at least 1,000 times, and it don't make me a crossing guard. I went to law school, and I got a job with the prosecutor's office, and I became a federal prosecutor. Don't make me a good lawyer. I carry a Bible, and I say a prayer, but that don't make me a preacher. I'm looking at the board up here, and I don't see nobody up there that was ever a Chicago police officer making a decision about bringing somebody to the police department to pick somebody that would be right for the city of Chicago. Well, I just got a little problem with that. I got a problem with you coming here and you faking these people out like you really concerned about these people. Ms. Lightfoot was in OPS and she didn't do nothing. Ms. Lightfoot is with the board, the police board is the president, and I went to my first meeting about a month ago, and she fired a police officer because she was disorderly and drunk in the street, and the police officer could get her job back. All she got to do is say, I seen a baby death, and that's my medication to get myself straight. I think we got to get tired of being sick and tired of getting y'all being put upon us to pick leaders for us in our community. You don't know who a policeman is because he could have been somebody that put a coat on and a uniform on and stayed in the locker room all day. He never did no police work, and the first time he on the street, he shot the first thing he seen because he wasn't trained. I just got a problem with every time y'all call these meetings, y'all do this clown stuff because y'all think we still clowns. Like they said, the ringmaster is right there, and the clowns are right there. We're not going to be clowns no more. We don't want you to pick an outsider to be the superintendent. We're going to pick the superintendent. Now, you have a good night.
You too. Thank you, sir. Let me get to the last two comments.
Good
Let's go
evening,
here.
everyone.
We
My
just
name
have
is-
two more comments if you all can stay seated. Let's go right ahead.
My name is Lisa Daniels. July 12th, 2012, my son was shot and killed. He wasn't killed by a police officer. He was killed by another young black man. You asked the question, what are the attributes that we're looking for a police superintendent in this city? And my suggestion is one who can come in and who can lead the force, who can make systematic changes, but who can also make changes to the culture. And when we begin to change the culture, things will begin to change, but that will not be the do-all, end-all. Because not only is there changes that need to be made on a systematic level and in a cultural level within the police department as it exists today, but there also need to be changes made in the community. The community is divided. We are afraid of our own people. We are afraid of each other. And that's where the changes need to be made. Yes, we do need a superintendent that can lead. We need a superintendent who has compassion. We need a superintendent who has an understanding of the urban plight. But we also need to come together as a community. My son was killed by another young man in a drug deal that went bad. We need to restore hope to the community. We need to restore hope to the community. So my comment to the panel is to begin to make cultural changes, because the attitude that exists in the police officers that would shoot and kill someone doesn't just stand in his ability to stand behind his badge. It's a mindset that is ingrained. It is a willingness to take the life of another individual based on a belief system. Let me talk. Let me say what I want to say. Based on a belief system of invincibility, and that's a culture. That's a culture that needs to be changed. And it's not going to be changed by one person, in one term, in one time. It's not going to be changed that soon. It has to be changed from the community, and the community has to begin to trust the police system again. We don't trust the police system, and we have good reason not to. But that being said, we don't trust each other. We march and we say Black Lives Matter, but how can we convince the world that Black Lives Matter when we treat each other the way we treat each other? Black lives matter when they matter to us. When we can convince the police system that Black Lives Matter, then maybe they'll take us seriously. That's my comment.
Thank you for your comment. We're going to go right here.
Hi, I'm a concerned citizen of Chicago. I was wondering, how can you make a $5 million mistake and still keep your job? From what I've heard, there's almost $1 billion being paid out by the city by accidental shootings. If you were CEOs of a company, would you let one of your employees make $1 million mistake and let them keep their job? That's all I got to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Last one. Thank you. Someone help bring the mic down for us so we can make sure she can be heard. There we go.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Janice Cobb, and I am a lifelong Inglewood resident, born, raised, graduated from Kennedy King last year with my associate's degree. Currently at Governor State, receiving my bachelor's degree in social work. January 21st, 2015, my nephew, Edwin Cook, 19 years old, Chicago Public School student, was murdered on his way to school. The current interim superintendent met with a bunch of family members of victims of gun violence of Chicago in a church basement on the south side, and I won't say which church. Mr. Escalante, then Chief Escalante, sat in that basement and promised to look over each and every one of our cases. At that time, that was April the 11th, 2015, 3 months into my nephew's murder. I was a newbie. It was a lot of victim members, families in that basement that had been 5 years in, 10 years in. I was hopeful at 3 months in. When Mr. Escalante sat and said he would follow up with the cases, he didn't. I got the runaround, y'all, for months. After he didn't reach me, I reached out to him. When I called, he was either away from his desk, either in a meeting or out of town. He is our current interim superintendent that gave all us grieving family members of gun violence the runaround. If elected or if hired as superintendent, my question is, are we going to get the same runaround from Mr. Escalante, John Escalante, or whoever is hired? Will we get someone that would just meet with us, like today or in a church basement, and promise us things and give us the runaround? Is that what we have to look forward to as citizens of the city of Chicago? My first question. My second question is, this is my nephew. He was 19 years old. He did not deserve to be gunned down in a gangway the way he did. The case is unsolved. The 21st of this month makes 1 year. We're still grieving. What will happen to the unsolved cases once the new superintendent is picked is my second question. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So before we head out, just a few of the questions that some of the people put on the index cards. We're going to email those that we didn't get a chance to answer. Some of the main things and some of the main concerns that we're hearing are obvious, and your message is clear. The reason why we have this meeting, I want to reiterate, is because the board, for the first time ever in the city of Chicago, the board has made an effort to listen to the people. Is everything going to happen the same? One of the people that spoke before said the culture, this culture of the lack of accountability and this blue code is so deeply ingrained in the city of Chicago. It's not going to take one term, one person, or one thing to make it happen. But all of this energy that you have put out there in the streets, that you put out there when you stood in front of those stores on a Magnificent Mile, all of that culminated into this moment right here. So, brother, I respect you. The reason why I said that we need to hear is because this woman lost somebody. This woman lost somebody, and their stories needed to be heard. And I pray that this continues, this discussion continues, and I'm confident that it will. I would not taken this opportunity. I'm not a member of the police board. I'm a journalist, independent journalist working for WVON 1690. I have no ambition. My name isn't even on a flyer. I took this as a concerned citizen, and that's the reason why I'm standing here today. I want to pass this on to the president of Chicago Urban League, and I want to thank her and give her a round of applause for putting this event together.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It was very instructive to me, if not to any of you, but I hope that all of you learned something about the process that's going to occur, the process that's in place. And as we've heard, a lot of people say that they don't agree with the process that's in place, but there's another forum for us to do that. And that starts on March 15th. So if you're not registered to vote now, you need to get registered to vote by February 15th, and you need to make sure that you go to the polls on March 15th. This is very important. It's the way it impacts our communities every single day. So I think, I'm so proud of all of you coming out tonight, and I thank you all for participating in a respectful and important way for this process to move forward. So thank you very much, and good night.